Hello and welcome. In this video, we're going to look at personal reflection number 4. As we have started to move into this part of the class, you should be starting to get a feel for the structure and the expectations of the reflections. And you'll also begin to notice that as opposed to some of the earlier personal reflections, like number 1, where you have to understand your happiness and reflect on that, and number 2, we actually have to score and learn about your strengths and plan and use those in a day. As we move into these sets of reflections, a lot of the reflections we're going to be looking at are going to be focused on some journaling activities. Talked about that a little bit in the last video. And so again, one of the things I want to really emphasize here in this video is, first, this is actually a relatively straightforward mini experiment, intervention, and reflection. And 2, just the sort of general sense that there's not anything outside of the activity that you need to do and the reflection. All right. So in this one, again, relatively typical intervention to try and cultivate and increase optimism is to think about, is to envision, is to write about your best possible self in the future. And so what I want you to do is I want you to take some time as you're listening to this video to begin to envision, to begin to imagine, to begin to think about what your best possible future could look like. And then part of what we want to think about is how do we get there? What are the steps that you would be taking, right? And you should think about your best possible self across many different domains. Think about it across your career. Maybe if you want to think about it more in the short term, you can think about your academic pursuits, your major classes, things like that. But also your best possible self when you think about your relationships, hobbies, health, everything. What is your best possible self look like in the future? It's up to you to determine how far in the future you want to look. You can look in the near term or the far term. And then once you've got a good sense of what you want to do, I want you to write continuously for 15 minutes. Don't worry about grammar. Don't worry about sentence structure. You're not going to turn this part of the assignment in. I want you to just make sure that you journal pretty reflectively on what is your best possible self. Paying attention to, as you write, how do you feel? What kind of moods are you experiencing? What kind of emotions are you experiencing? And pay a particular attention to your level of optimism. Do you feel that this intervention is actually increasing your optimism about your future? Those are things that you're going to want to be thinking about sort of in the background as you're writing. Okay, so that's basically the first part, right? So this is the imagine and write about your future, right? So you're going to take some moments to first reflect on your future, to think about different areas of your future, to envision what your life looks like. Try and really get into as much detail as possible. And then when you have a good sense of where you want to look, so I mean, just if I was thinking about this, I might do, where I am in my career, I might start to think about as I wind down my career, because that's kind of where I am in my stage of life. You might think about the beginning of your career, or you could even think about your best possible selves in 10 or 20 years in the future, right? No limitations on this. But then set aside time and write. I've mentioned this before. I do think writing is much more effective if you actually set a timer, get out a pen and paper, and do that particular work there. Once you've done that, then what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and write for 15 minutes all the things. Now you've done the to-do part, right? So now you're going to actually reflect on that. So there's 4 major parts, as there always is in these personal reflections, right? So there's the what do you need to do, and then there's the part that I actually grade. So now you do not have to, and given the word content and word limits, I certainly wouldn't advise that you actually upload or use any of your word count for your actual best possible self. That's really just to stimulate the reflection writing. So first you're going to describe with some amount of vivid description, what did it feel like when you were doing this, right? So I want you to pay attention to your emotions and the sensations that you felt during this actual activity. And then I'm really particularly interested in, as you've sort of worked through this, the degree to which your mood actually changes across time. Are you becoming more positive, or is there any change in your mood, or maybe even more negative as you continue to reflect on that, right? So what is the impact of your mood across the intervention? And then I want you to focus primarily on your optimism. Does this actually make you feel more optimistic in the future, right? Do you actually feel like your future is obtainable? Do you feel like going through these types of exercises, or this particular type of exercises, actually made you feel more optimistic? And then I want you to really sort of focus on any sort of insights or realizations that have come about your future, your aspirations, your goals. Maybe there's a goal that you had that you never thought about. But what is something about you or yourself or your future that emerged during this exercise? Okay, so that is the exercise. Then, of course, you will upload it. I will grade it based on the rubric and provide comments. And if you would like, you can always reach out to me and ask questions about it.